This episode is for Friday, July 1st, 2016. Welcome, Crater fans. I'm your host, Josh Owens, along with my co-host,
Abby Iyer.
Hey, Abby, how's it going?
It's pretty good, man. I'm actually outside of a Starbucks right now
Ooh, nice.
because I had some family drama that I'm taking care of the house back in my hometown. So I'm not in LA today, but it's super hot here, and there's no good internet around here. I'm like in the desert.
Where are you
So,
at?
so I'm in the Inland Empire in Pomona, California. No one will know where this is. It's like a small town. I'm right in front of the Starbucks, in front of a yoga studio. So there's a bunch of girls walking out, which is cool. But that's it.
Nice. Yeah, we missed last week because I was out of town and I had a similar problem. I was in Nashville and I could not find stable internet to save my life. I even went over to a Starbucks for a little while and it was still kind of crappy internet. So
Yeah,
I don't know, man. It was
definitely can't do deployments from Starbucks. That's for sure.
yeah, really.
It's gonna take
Oh, we
forever.
got half deployed. Yay.
Yeah.
You need, probably the coolest deployment system. I'm sure there's a lot of cool ones out there, but the coolest one I've heard of was Twitter. They had one called Murder, and it was it was a play. So a group of crows is called a murder of crows, and so it was a play on that because they're birds and Twitter. Yeah. Anyway, but they use BitTorrent, and so they would just put a release out, and it would be out there as BitTorrent, and seed onto a server, and then all the other servers would pick it up and install it and run it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. So then you'd only have to seed a torrent long enough for one server to get it, and then you're good to go.
Yeah,
that would work from Starbucks, eh?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
I think so. Murder in it.
So today we're going to talk about Meteor 1.4 and beyond. Of course, that's becoming a theme. I notice anytime Matt gives a talk, he just throws "and beyond" on it.
And beyond, yeah.
Apollo query batching. Who's hiring? Someone to ask Crater, who's hiring? And automatically starting development apps. All right. Yes. So I actually just finished watching this, and I thought it was an interesting talk from Matt DeBurgalis at MDG. He gave it for whatever they call their monthly night thing now. Just Dev
Yeah,
night.
Meteor Night or something.
Meteor Night, whatever.
Dev Night.
Yeah. So it was an interesting talk to me. I feel like they've been dancing around this idea of working on Apollo for a while, which is interesting. And, the thing that they've not outright come out and said is that, they're basically abandoning the idea of mini Mongo and client-side caching and that kind of stuff and opening it up to more databases. Instead, they want to pursue GraphQL and Apollo. And I think he basically said that in the long term, they see it being a complete replacement for DDP. So, I'm glad he said it, and I think I knew it was coming. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be a super pleasant experience for everyone involved.
Yeah. I don't know. Once again, they make these announcements, and they say that they're worrying about professional developers. They keep saying professional developers.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think you have to have been in developing a product like this for a couple of years for you to even have an opinion on what a professional developer is. I don't know. I watched this and I was not happy with it because when I watched 1.3 and beyond, it was going to be so easy and all that. We already talked about this before, but right, 1.4 is going to be hard for people who have Meteor apps. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, transitioning is tough. So I think if you look at, to me, I've spent the last 3 years understanding DDP and how it works and how to scale it up for performance and what are the security implications of it. It's a little bit frustrating to think that is going to be that knowledge is going to be all for naught at some point, and you should really be looking at GraphQL. And I'm also glad that they've come out and said this statement because like I am now not going to push anyone towards like using DDP at this point. Like I'll be looking at other solutions for client applications in the long term. I think, it's interesting for you because you guys are somewhat kind of entrenched with DDP now, aren't you?
Yeah, and we're like slowly digging ourselves out of the hole. DDP. See, DDP didn't work out for us. Not like everyone. It's not the success story that everyone else has with like how easy DDP was, because our app was not the right pick for Meteor in the first place. I can say that now because we've scaled out of our beginning phase, and now we're in this intermediate where are we going next phase.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, DDP was great because we had 50 users. Like it was great because
Yeah.
we had no load, we had nothing. And I don't know. The Meteor team always promises us these fancy new things, and it's going to be zero cost or zero effort. But I realized that's not even true, because they don't even know our app. They don't know what kind of scale we are. They don't understand the business that we're trying to solve. So how do they know that it's going to be easy or not? I don't trust that anymore.
Well,
So,
I think the thing with Apollo is that it'll be better, right? Because now I'm not tied to Mongo. I'm not tied to how things should specifically work. Like there's trade-offs, right? And like it came up at the end of the talk. Someone said like they were talking about breaking apart all the in Meteor 1.4, like you're no longer going to have pinned core packages. Like there could be an update that comes out to Blaze if anyone's still using it, and like you could upgrade that version without having to have a full Meteor release. And there was a question at the end, and someone said, like, aren't there trade-offs between having kind of like a guaranteed release like version that packages everything together and it's been tested and everyone knows that it works, versus like these piecemeal kind of updates that you can pull in little by little? It's kind of interesting. And I think that that's what we're approaching here as well. Like there's going to be a trade-off when you go to Apollo. Like you're not going to get a lot of the automatic integration that you got with Meteor and Live Query and Mini Mongo and that kind of thing. Like I think that the biggest thing for me is the account system. What does the account system look like, and how do I handle that? Like, and and after doing this for 3 years, like I think we've had this conversation a few times. Like I'm not sure like instant reactivity, like real-time reactivity matters all that much anymore.
They keep preaching like community standards, and they say the excuse for the way Meteor was built originally is because there was no standard, right? But that's not true. That's not true, because there are a bunch of big companies writing JavaScript before Meteor existed that used standards, right? Maybe ES6 and ES6 modules was not a standard back then, but AMD was totally a standard, and CommonJS was a standard. Like I don't know. I can go on this rant for a long time, but the thing is, like, I really feel 1.4 and beyond means, oh, you're just coming to Meteor right now. Okay, 1.4 and beyond is good for you, right? But what about people who still have 1.2 apps? What about people who aren't even upgraded to 1.2 or even 1.2? Like, you literally are going to crash other people's businesses because they don't have the dev resources to upgrade, right? They don't have these resources to change their infrastructure. So potentially, you just like ruin someone's business as you keep doing these things. I don't know. Now, it's not on them to do those things, but they don't have a clear upgrade path. Where's my upgrade path in 1.4? Like, they haven't thought about it yet.
Yeah.
There's actually no upgrade path from 1.2 to 1.3. There's a freaking guide article, but what does that help? What does that help if I did all this package-based stuff? Where's my guide? How do I get out of this? What if I have 1,000 globals in my app? How do I get out of that?
Like I think what this indicates is that you should really like not just rely on one technology stack. You should really
Yeah.
just continue to experiment and learn and play with things. And hi, Mr. Train. Like this weekend, I've got a client project, and I could choose to go with Meteor, or like I just said, screw it. I'm going to use Apollo. I'm going to use Express, and I'm going to use Passport, and I'm going to not use, and we'll use React, obviously. And I'm not going to bother to even try Meteor for this thing, and see how it goes, so I can learn,
Yeah.
because I need to know for the future, like if GraphQL makes sense, like I may even play around with Relay, so who knows?
Yeah.
I think that it's not. It's better to have a knowledge of what's out there. Don't be focused in one area. Like I'm pretty sure this is going to be the basis of my talk for Meteor Camp New York.
I think it's a good topic.
Yeah,
It's a good topic.
yeah, because I've been through this a couple times. It wasn't really like there was no particular reason I left Rails, but it just didn't feel like the right solution anymore.
Yeah.
And so like I was looking for better things, and Meteor looked interesting. And I think that, I still stand behind, if you could build an app in half the time, like that was worth something, especially
Yeah.
Rails felt like I could build things faster than other platforms. So, but I feel like that's disappearing. So
Was this problem in the Rails community when Rails 4, I think, came out? Like Rails 4 was a big change, right?
yeah,
Compared
yeah,
to Rails 3.
yeah.
But I remember in Rails 4 that the community members behind it and the team behind it, they were getting people ready for it. I
They
remember
were.
people were getting ready. They were like, hey, Rails 4 is going to be a lot different. It's going to be good, but we're going to help you get there.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you look at it, like this entire time that I've been in the Meteor community, they just released Rails 5 like this week. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a long cycle to get a new version out, and they play with ideas, but
Yeah.
like the hard change was going from Rails 2 to Rails 3. Like there were major shifts there, and like
Yeah.
that was a super pain point for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, like I don't know where GitHub is now, but I remember like for the longest time, like Rails 4 was coming out and GitHub was still on like Rails 2.2, 2.3, because like they just had customized a lot of things and just couldn't make the move at that point. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rant over.
Legacy sucks.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah,
older
it's
than
just
a
a
month,
legacy.
it's legacy.
Right. In JavaScript community, especially.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's 1.4 and beyond.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's talk about Apollo, since
All
that's
right.
what
Let's talk.
we're beyond.
Let's talk about beyond the beyond part. Okay. So for people who listen to the show, I think a couple shows ago I said Apollo is not ready for prime time or anything. I think after next week I will say you should start using Apollo in production, because we are about to finish the 3 critical features that would make us on par with Relay. Those features being batch querying, which is what we're going to talk about right now, pagination, like out of the box, so you can paginate data, and lastly, it was how do we handle mutations? How do we handle the results of mutation? Right. Let me go into these things real quick. So batch querying is the topic of the article today, and so imagine this. So like today, if you subscribe in Meteor, if you subscribe to different pieces of data with 2 different subscriptions, right? And one can get into a merge box problem if you're like requiring different fields or whatever. But there's no easy way to bundle those requests to Mongo by taking the queries and putting them together and say, hey, I want this batch of data. There's nothing like that today.
Well, you have to do
Sorry.
it yourself, right?
You have to do it yourself,
Right.
exactly. And yeah, at WorkPop we built some, batch processes, batch queries, but that's one thing. So batch querying comes in really, really nicely, because all you get to do is you set an option in your query, and the Apollo client itself will understand what queries are coming in. It'll batch them in one request, and we'll just send them to the GraphQL server. out of the box. So it's up to you, and you can only, and it's opt in or opt out. So like it's actually opt in. So you get to decide if you want to do this, which is the best thing. You know, so you have more control and all that. The interesting thing about this feature is it was built by the Apollo intern. So this guy's an intern. He's very young. His name's David, I think, and he goes by Point Care on GitHub, and he's been killing it for the project. Like he's been doing a lot of great work, and this is one of the things that he shipped for his internship. And it's great code, great quality. Everyone reviewed it. So batch querying is great. I want to talk about the other features too. Pagination. So in Meteor, pagination is a little tricky. I know Sasha has an article about that because there are different types of pagination you can have, right? You can have like numbered pages. You can have infinite scroll. But like as you're paginating, what if like data changes? So like you might have an item that was on page 2, now it could be on page 3 as well. These little edge cases with pagination. So what we are going to do in Apollo is having a way to fetch more data when you need to. Instead of like going by this like pagination rule, we're going to let the UI decide what a page means in terms of like, visually. But pagination in Apollo is just going to be fetching more data, and you're going to either append it to a list or prepend it. So you get to decide if you want to put the new data that you're fetching in the front of the list or the end. So you can either go backwards or forward. And that'll also work for infinite scroll, fetching more and then going up and fetching more. So that's an exciting feature in itself for the Apollo project. Relay also does a pagination via these things called cursors, because you need to know the point that you are at and the edges around the data that you need to go to. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. And the last great feature that I think it's already merged, is mutation results. So before, when you made a mutation, you had to specify the way it returned the way the data returned to the UI. In Apollo, you can actually specify a custom reducer or a translation layer. So if I make a mutation, I can say, okay, well, the results are coming back, but I actually want to process them differently for the client, which is really cool. So now you can actually do very custom results. So if I mutate a to-do list, I can actually, when it returns, I can actually put that to-do at the top of the list or the bottom of the list or in the middle, or I can actually, only add that to-do and delete all the other ones. Like I can do custom things with my data once I mutate something. So that is another very flexible tool that people will be able to use. So I think by next week, we'll have the React Native stuff will be fixed because I'm fixing that today. But we'll have all the tools that you can do to get started. And I think that I will start recommending it after the next release. Like, for sure, start using it. Actually, you should start using it right now. If you're listening to this, start using it right now. Because I'm comfortable now because we have feature parity with Relay, and which is great because now it's only more stuff that we're going to build that's better. So start using it. And I'll be talking about Apollo at Meteor NYC, just about the React and Apollo integration. So I'll go into a lot of these details and stuff like that if you're interested, but I would start using it today. And that's why I think Josh is going to be using it for his client project.
Yeah, because Abhi recommended it.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. Like query batching, I actually got into a discussion with Tom Coleman about this because like Meteor recommended Publish Composite, which is actually really, really terrible for this particular problem right here, because like if you fetch a record and let's say you have 10 child records that you need to loop over, you're going to end up making one query and then 10 more child queries for that. Whereas like it's always more efficient to just make 2 queries, one for the initial data and then another query to fetch the other 10 child documents, because like that round trip overhead costs you something. And when you're doing it like 10 times, 100 times, something like that, like it does add up. It may seem like, oh, it's only, let's say 50 milliseconds per query, but at like 50 queries, that's going to start making a difference. So,
and also, another great thing about using Express and GraphQL and the other technologies, is you don't have the burden of live query. I know at the Meteor developers that I know are very cautious of database operations, right? The fact that you have to be cautious about database operations, it sucks because database is like your heart of the application, and you're worried about making queries because your CPU is going to go up and your server is going to go down. Why are you even worried about that? If you're worried
Yeah,
about that, then you have to go to another technology.
I think the difference, like the part that's going to become interesting is that like it's no longer like I can't just call someone up and say like how am I gonna scale this? Like I can't just like I have to, instead of like finding a Meteor expert or something like that, I have to go find like a database expert, which maybe is easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's definitely not going to be like the community. I think is going to be more disparate and less knowledgeable. I don't know. Like I don't know the right way to say it, but
I think so. Ideally, what we're planning on doing is putting more work in the GraphQL server. So the client, so these batch queries is the first part, but we're imagining a world where the GraphQL server does a lot more for you,
that would
and
be awesome.
you leverage that guy and your server instead of the client and this constant lag of connection. Now the worry about leveraging the GraphQL server and putting more work into it, and it's a worry with anything, is latency. So if we figure out the latency problem and you can start doing complex joins and your GraphQL server can handle that complexity and with the lowest latency, then you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's probably that's like the next, chapter of it. So,
Yeah.
but I honestly think you'll get a lot more performance gains if you just use I would like to start. Let me rephrase that. I would take an app in Meteor with Apollo and take a Express app with Apollo, and I bet you that the Express app with Apollo will perform and scale better, just because there isn't that that scariness of live query or CPU bound operations. So yeah. Anyway, that's the stuff. That's the update.
Nice. I'm actually tweeting this next story out right now.
Nice.
Go add your info here. There we go. Tweet. Yeah, so I don't know. I like this post. Someone posted on Creator yesterday and said, like, who's hiring? And I think it's a great question. Like, I haven't seen that question pop up yet. So, I pinged the Space Dojo Slack channel, and a couple people popped in and put their info in, and I just put a tweet out as well. Yeah, I think so. Like the client that I'm doing work for right now, I know they're hiring. They're in Canada. They're in Winnipeg. Like they're probably looking for on-site people. But I know like OK Grow and Differential are always hiring, and I know Differential's open to remote people. I think OK Grow might be as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
And it looks like there's some people hiring in Paris, Germany, San Francisco. So like, this is a good thread, number one, to go read. And then I think the other thing, like this got us started talking, and like I think maybe this is a central theme today, which is like what can you do to make yourself more hireable? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So yes, totally. After you told me about this, I started thinking pretty deeply about it. And I think when I went to Customer Day this year, or this last Customer Day, all the Meteor shops, Differential was there, and some small companies, and they kept asking the Meteor team, how do we hire Meteor developers? And my boss and I were sitting there, and we were like, oh yeah, you don't hire Meteor developers. You don't hire those. You either hire people who can build stuff and teach them Meteor, or you hire people who have the willingness to learn and all those things. There are so many other qualities that make you hireable than the technology you know.
Yeah.
And so, from my opinion, is if I'm hiring for a Meteor developer, then I already lost, because I'm hiring for someone who's like so thin in scope, And if I want someone on my team personally, I want someone who's maybe well-rounded, or he's like an industry expert at something that is kind of like, essential to my stack, right? Like we have a data scientist who just knows everything about databases. Like he's a nerd about that. He's like a database nerd,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We hired a CSS nerd. This guy's a nerd. Just freaking nerd about CSS. And like so much so that our pull requests often get heated because he's saying like, you got to do this because of the CSS. And I'm just like, oh man, that doesn't even matter. But you're a nerd, so let me appease you. But I like that stuff because you bring so much more to your team if you have those type of strengths and opinions and all that stuff. So I think you should be well-rounded. I don't think people should be hiring meteor developers. I think they should be hiring good developers,
Yeah,
So
I've often found that to be the case. So, like, my client in Canada actually did the same thing recently. They went out and hired 2 people, and they were just JavaScript people, and they had done some React work and had never used Meteor. And part of my job is to, like, sit down with them, do a little pair programming, and, like, the very first thing I did was just kind of walk them through the code base and just explaining like, oh, this is live query, this is DDP, here's how you can look at like information going back and forth. It's similar to what I do in my training class, but like it's just basically data dumping to them, but in the context of like their application and trying to level them up as fast as they can to start contributing business value to the projects that they're working on. Yeah, so to me, like if I were like getting started with Meteor, I would actually start looking at React or I don't know, GraphQL or React Native or anything, and start playing with that stuff as well, because it's gonna like even just building a sample app will go a long way for you, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also, if you're building a company that is very server intensive, I would not hire a Meteor developer to do that. I would hire someone who's built a lot of backends and scaled a bunch of different services and stuff, because they can always bring that knowledge to Meteor instead of them knowing Meteor and having to figure that other stuff out. Which we hired a software architect from eBay, and he's just a really smart guy. And like when he came into Meteor, he was just super skeptical because like he has scaled so many big company apps. And he came in and he was just very skeptical and very like just not impressed with the tools for someone like him, right? There's so many tools for product developers, but there's not a lot of tools for people who are just hardcore like backend, hardcore like database, hardcore tooling and scaling and all that. So it took an adjustment for him to learn the JavaScript way of things. And even now he's still skeptical, but he knows how to operate in the system that is Meteor, So I don't know. That's another recommendation: is hire someone who's good for their niche job, and they can always teach them anything.
Yeah, definitely. Like smart people are gonna pick things up.
Yeah, totally.
Just the truth. Like I started in PHP, moved to Ruby. I remember starting in SVN, starting in CVS, moved to SVN, moved to Git. Like these are things that make sense, Like as technology evolves, people are gonna learn it and change. And right now I thoroughly enjoy React. And 3 years, maybe that's not gonna be the case, right? Like it's gonna be like, oh, that's terrible. What a stupid idea React was, but who knows?
Yeah, maybe it'll be like Vue.js or something. Who knows?
Yes, indeedy. All right, so the last story, I sprung this one on you. I don't know if you happen to watch the video.
So I did not watch the video yet, but I did hear the announcement this morning for it. Do you mind just like telling me about it, and then
we can talk not at all. Yeah, not at all.
I'll watch it after this though.
Yeah, I've been doing code kata videos, and I try to keep them at like 15 minutes max, and I enjoy it too because like now that I have this iMac, I can do 4K videos. So like if you can do like top-notch video, like you should go watch this thing. But anyway, Hotel is like, so the one thing I miss from Railsland is they had, gosh, now I can't think of the name of it, but there was this automatic app starter, and oddly enough, it was built with Node under the hood. And like it would start a rack app for you, which is like Rails conformed to rack for a long time. Anyway, like you'd just be able to say like, I've got a Rails app and you start it and you manage like what port it's running on and all those dependencies and that kind of thing. And all I have to do is type in a domain name and
Yeah.
come up and run my local version for me. And then like it would have a timeout. And so after like 10 minutes it would go away. Like since I moved to Meteor, like I found one, but it didn't quite work the way I wanted to. And there were some problems with Meteor and like database ports and that kind of thing. So the guy that wrote that actually rewrote as hotel, and so now you just npm install hotel, and then you basically get this same kind of functionality, but it's not specific to actually any kind of development environment, right? Like it's not tied to Rails and Rack, it's not tied to Meteor and Node or any of that stuff. Like you install it using Node, but you just give it a command line, it'll start the application for you. As long as the app that you're trying to start takes a port, and it will start the app for you. And you can take a proxy config and pop that into your machine, and then you can start typing in like, I've got craterconf.dev, and boom, it pulls up the Jekyll site for me without any effort. Yeah, so it's really, really cool. Like, and I think
this is dope.
I think it's worth taking the time to like get your tool set up the way you want. Like it feels like it might be a waste or like a big yak shave to work on your development setup, but I actually think it's not. Like it saves me time in the end. Like today when I get off here, I got to go fix I got to make some changes to the craterconf website, and all I have to do is open my editor, make a couple changes, check the web page. I don't even have to start anything. Once it's good, ship it up to GitHub and we're done,
Yeah. This reminds me of a service called Now. Have you heard of this service called Now? Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, where, well, not in the same vein, but the ease of use and just shipping quickly, shipping versions super quick, and having that instant feedback, and you have to have these tools. Like without these tools, you're going to spend hours just doing stuff that you probably shouldn't be doing. Go spend time with your kids, man. Like, why are you wasting time on this, I remember my first development job to update. I mean, a lot of people still do this, but to update our live site, we SSH'd into our server, git pulled, did all this jazz in there, run these configs, and then git push, and then like that just seems so weird now, right? Like the times have changed in deploying and stuff, But like going SSHing into your server, git pulling the source code, doing all this jazz, like there's so many tools out there that just do it for you, right? And now specifically and all that stuff. So yeah. You know what? Let's talk about Code Goddess for a second, because this is like your third one, I think, or second?
Fourth. I did one
Okay.
on Kadira. I didn't really announce it very well, but
yeah, I only knew about the two. I think these code katas are super helpful. Like, they're like it's kind of reminds me of Egghead. Egghead videos are like 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, and you get a lot of information that you can just go digest real quick, and then try it out or do something later. Maybe we should do more. Maybe we should do some creator podcast sponsored code katas. Like maybe one day we have some, like we review some article, and then we also release a kata with the podcast. That'd be cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to so in the future, and like if you have ideas, let me know. But that includes like any of the listeners out there too. Like tweet at me. But I plan to do. I want to do a series of building one application, like very, very tiny, 10 minutes. Like get a framework installed, build an application, and then move on to the next framework and just try it and see what that getting started experience is like, and keep it to like 15 minutes or so, and see how far we can get.
Yeah, it also adds to the learn other stuff mantra, like learn other stuff, do other things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, another thing, this is just besides the whole show or anything, but another thing I wanted to say was like the Creator Podcast, you and I, like, we're going to be doing some Apollo work together too. So
Mm-hmm.
People should listen to the show more because you're going to get insider info on Apollo if you're interested. And you also might get some educational tools out of the show itself that we might give to everybody. So stay tuned on that. Get excited about it.
Yes, indeedy.
Because, I think if you listen to the Kata, it's really good teaching style. And if you're struggling, if you're struggling learning GraphQL right now, if you like the style, it might help other people. We can incorporate the style and help you. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for being on today, Abhi. And as always, thank you to Modulus and DigitalOcean for sponsoring. And you can go to Patreon and check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Meteor Club. I really should figure out how to fix that. Say that every
we have to do a plug about Patreon, because I don't know if people understand what the value of Patreon is for the show.
Oh, yeah.
Patreon keeps the lights on.
It does. So I handle the YouTube version of this show. If you watch that, I upload that thing, edit it, and upload it. But I actually do hand this off to an audio editor to give it a slightly better quality. And he handles that. And then I have a VA that then uploads it all to Simplecast so that it gets to your device. And that stuff costs money, and running I don't know, just running the Space Dojo Slack channel kind of takes my time, and curating all that. So that money comes in and just helps me kind of run all the behind the scenes stuff. Cause Simplecast, I think it only costs me I think I'm paying them $20 a month. I'm thinking about adding a third podcast. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But, so all this stuff it costs some money, and that helps out with those costs. So really super appreciate it. And I do try to deliver some value. If you go to the $10 level, you get into the Slack channel. So
and with more patrons, there are more exciting things we can do with the show. We can scale the show a little bit more than we want, because the show started off as a Meteor show, right? And we have bigger ambitions now, and to get there,
I think to me, if I had enough people on board, I could actually afford. I've got a quote from my designer to make a pretty version of Crater with React, and customize it to look a little more like Crater, but actually a fresh design. And that's going to cost $900. So we gotta get the funds there somehow for that. So I've been trying to.
So don't drink your coffee today, and donate the $5 to the Crater podcast, and we can get the show going.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry for the plug, but I wanted to say that.
That's all right. Thanks, man.
No worries.
All right. Thanks, Abhi.
All right. See you guys later.
Next week. Bye.
All right.
This video has been a Space Dojo production. You can click the Learn More button to find out more about us at spacedojo.com. Or you can click the subscribe button to get notified about new videos we put out each week. Thanks for watching.